Scargill was right, but it's too late now, of course.
Hello and welcome to the Aspects of History podcast. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and we're now into 2022. So with that, I thought we'd start things off with a bang, and that was Jeremy Paxman. I'm sure you recognise his voice, but that was Jeremy Paxman, the legendary presenter of Newsnight, the legendary presenter of University Challenge, and author and historian. Now, we're talking about his new book, Black Gold, The History of How Coal Made Britain. Now, this is a really great book. I read this over the Christmas period, and it takes the coal mining industry, from the very beginnings in the early 19th century. And he demonstrates not only how coal was so instrumental in driving the development of the British Empire and the Industrial Revolution, but he does it in such a way that he really does show the work and the sacrifice and it was literally backbreaking work in many cases, but the sheer struggle that miners went through in getting that black rock up out of the ground and then shipped off to drive all kinds of industry, the Royal Navy in particular, and trains as well. And those vital industries that built Britain into what it is today, really. And then he moves on into the 20th century and the struggles with successive governments in seeking to become trade unionized and for nationalisation, before he then finally deals with the, very much still controversial miners' strike of 1984 and 85, when Arthur Scargill, and that was who Paxman was mentioning, the leader of the National Union of Mine Workers, led a strike against the government of Margaret Thatcher in a battle to save coal mining in Britain. Now, that battle was ultimately unsuccessful, but Arthur Scargill is very much a controversial figure still, and does come out of the book not brilliantly. There are a number of decisions that Scargill made that probably he shouldn't have if he was seeking to really protect his mine workers. One of the most controversial of which was refusing to hold a vote for his union to decide whether to go on strike or not. But anyway, I'd encourage you to get the book, actually, because when I saw that it was out, I wasn't quite sure that it would be. I'm being very, very honest here. I wasn't entirely sure it would be that much of a thrill to read about coal, but how wrong was I? It's absolutely I raced through it, actually. It was a very enjoyable book, so I do recommend it. Anyway, so we have a great chat. Was a little bit nervous because it's Jeremy Paxman, and at some point I thought he would start interviewing me, but luckily I'm very much low down the pecking order, so Mr. Paxman has bigger fish to fry, and he was on good form. Elsewhere, at Aspects of History, we were running a winter festival on YouTube that's free to visit. Just head over to the YouTube, look for Aspects of History, and there's plenty of links on our Twitter as well. But you'll find videos where I've interviewed Andrew Roberts on George III. We've had Tessa Dunlop talking about women in the army, Paul Lay talking about Oliver Cromwell, and finally Robert Lyman talking about the Far Eastern Campaign. So head on over, all for free, and you can watch and enjoy those, hopefully. Now, we've got coming up, I've got after Jeremy's podcast today, I've got Saul David coming up, and he's just written a book about the SBS, the Special Boat Service. So we're talking a little bit about that. And he's a long-running historian now, bit of a veteran now, and he's written many books. So I'm going to go into talk a little bit about his previous books as well. He's written about the 19th century, and he's done stuff on the World War One. And he's written a few historical fiction novels as well. So we're going to have a little bit of a chat. So that'll be over coming successive weeks. So I'll probably split that into two. So anyway, enough of me rabbiting on. Over to Paxo, Jeremy Paxman. And I do hope you enjoy. And if you do, please subscribe. Please like on iTunes. It really does help. And thank you for listening. Jeremy Paxman, welcome to the Aspects of History podcast. I didn't think I'd ever say that. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for agreeing to speak to me. And I'll just explain a little bit about Aspects of History. We are a magazine and website dedicated to history and historical fiction.
Oh, well, that's great. Good.
Yeah.
And what, you're out to put History Today out of business, are you?
We have no enemies. We are friendly to everyone. We're happy to, because we are really all about selling books. We just want to, anyone who writes a piece for us can use it wherever they want. So they could use it in History Today if they like. The theory is all we don't really have any enemies. We're nakedly commercial, unlike History Today, in that our goal is for our readers to buy books. And
good for you.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Good luck. That was my partner. You probably saw come in, attempt to sort out how this fucking Zoom thing works. And she's a publisher, so she'd be glad to be in touch with you, I'm sure.
Oh, really? Oh, great. Yeah. Would love to be. Well, how are you?
I'm fine.
Well, I you probably get asked that all the time, and so forgive me for asking, but
it's all right. I've got Parkinson's, so people expect you to be. I don't have the shaky bit. I have steady hands, as you can see, but I have some other characteristics.
And right. Well, I hope. It sounds like today is a better day. I guess you take each day as it comes.
Yes, you do.
Right.
You have to. You have any choice.
Yeah. Right. Well, look, I'll get on with it. So I wanted to ask you firstly why you wrote the book, because when I initially looked at it, I thought, coal. Why? But once you look into it a little bit more, it's a bit obvious. But I was just interested to know why you wanted to write about.
Well, there were two reasons really. One was I happened to be in one of those shitty little villages in South Wales, where there's. I thought, looking at it, there is no reason to understand why this village exists at all, because all the infrastructure of coal mining has disappeared from our lives.
Yeah.
So the winding gear has disappeared. The slag heaps have been landscaped. And you think of that, and you think also, there is nothing more nakedly capitalistic than digging something out of the ground and doing something with it. And I rather admire those people who did all that from scratch. And I just was interested to try to make something of it.
Well, that really comes across in the book, your admiration for them. And my only real memory of coal mining is from all the strikes and the strife in the 80s, because obviously I'm not old enough to remember anything more. But this is a noble profession that was. I just had huge amount of sympathy for and admiration for the coal miners from day one. Really, such a difficult job.
Yes, I mean they wouldn't. I don't think they would have called it a profession. It was a manual labor, a very, very hard form of manual labor, but it was manual labor nonetheless, and it wasn't a profession.
A way of life.
Exactly. Yeah. And the problem I think that came about in the 1980s was that because people couldn't imagine another way of life than that which they were used to. It's the same for all of us, I suppose. When Thatcher set about dismantling the coal mines, people thought it was a destruction of their way of life. Although I never ever met a miner who wanted his son to go down the pit.
Do you think that would have been true of their parents and their grandparents, that they wouldn't have wanted their own, that generation that were the final generation to be down the pits?
I don't think so. I think it would have been true of their. I don't think anybody ever wanted. Everyone who ever did it recognized that it was a terrible way of life, and it was merciless, absolutely merciless.
That's probably a prevailing view nowadays. That I think Heseltine gives the quote. You've put that quote in the book that Heseltine gives. Is no regret. It was a terrible experience to be down those mines. But I guess in dismantling the community at the same time, that's what made it such a horrific end to that way of life.
That's true. That's certainly true. I mean, they couldn't imagine a different way of life. And you think of the place where you grew up, and you think of its whole raison d'etre is taken away, and the buildings around you are torn down. Of course, people wanted to hang on to their way of life.
And so the government really, the Thatcher government, didn't bother to put anything in place, I guess, beyond redundancy payments to
well, they did. I mean, in some of these places there were. I mean, for example, up in the northeast, there was the Nissan factory, which was opened to give employment to former miners. So there were substitute sources of employment. But you can't. It's very hard to imagine something that's entirely without your experience.
Yeah, and that, I mean, the last line in the book actually isn't where I forget the exact line. It's something like, can we imagine that type of work? Will we be able to remember that type of work? I mean, me living in the nice, comfortable southeast, I just can't imagine anything like that. But do you think we've reached that stage already? That we can't remember, or we won't be able to remember people doing that kind of work?
I don't think we will be able to remember people doing that kind of work. And it's very, very sad. I mean, there is an energy crisis coming, and everyone can see that now. And this was the only form of energy that was available in this country at that time. Coal, and they needed people to dig it out of the ground. So men went underground and sacrificed their health and their well-being and the well-being of their family in order to do it very often. And I don't know that there's any alternative, really. I mean, we can go around putting up wind farms and photoelectric screens in order to maximize photovoltaic energy, but I don't think it's going to be easy to find a substitute for coal.
No, we're kind of relying on science to find an answer that doesn't exist yet, aren't we?
We are, yeah. That and imported gas
from Mr. Putin,
partly from Mr. Putin, but also from very unstable areas of the world, like North Africa and so on.
But then, I mean, we don't really have any more mines in this country, do we? So we'll just be importing more coal.
We will, yes. I mean, we just carry on importing. We import currently from Eastern Europe, from South America, and from Australia, and from China. And sooner or later, those sources of supply are going to run out.
Now, I mean, the part we import coal partly because producing coal in this country became so unprofitable. But why was that? I mean, was that because we were basically miners were going down, working off, infrastructure made in the 19th century? What was the reason for the lack of productivity?
I rewatched Billy Elliot last night, and that was filmed in Easington, a colliery in the northeast of England. And there, the mine shafts were going out 7 miles under the sea. Well, of course, you could go out 7 miles. You've got to walk 7 miles back again, and of course, it becomes uneconomic to mine coal in those circumstances. All the obvious seams of coal have been exploited, so you were left with more and more difficult seams, and more time spent gathering the coal. And the big cost in coal was the cost of getting it out of the ground. I mean, it costs nothing. It's just a rock.
I guess in a lot of countries where they don't have to worry about environmental impact so much, you can do open cast? Open
cast mining, yes. Well, that's right. They do that. But sure as hell, someone's going to suffer for it.
Well, yeah. So... And the sheer the sheer agony that the miners went through in the 19th century is exacerbated by the sort of vast sums that were sort of raked in by the landowners. Now,
yes,
I mean, it's mind-boggling the amount of money that these is the Marquis of Bute and the Marquis of Londonderry and their descendants all accumulated.
It was staggering, and it was through no effort at all. You just happened to own the land.
I mean, because I was reading it thinking, this is such a waste. It's so much money going to one person. I mean, more money than they knew what to do with. And you list out sort of where they spent their money on just insane projects. It just seems. There was no, I guess, political will or even understanding to maybe think about not allowing private individuals to.
Well, that was the goal of the miners from about the turn of the 19th century. Nationalize the pits, nationalize the pits, nationalize the pits, nationalize the pits, and it happened eventually in the 20th century, after the Second World War. Coal was nationalized. And they couldn't make a go of it
because I guess they had they had exhausted all the seams that were easily accessible.
The easily exploitable seams had been exploited, and the miners themselves were being paid too much.
But they were paid a pittance during the 19th century.
Yeah, they were. But the boot was on the other foot. The rise of trade union power meant that the wages of miners rose. And
now they were always let down, weren't they, the miners, by the leadership of the trade unions? Is that a fair?
I don't think they were always let down. They were rather looked up to by the rest of the trade union movement, because they recognized that it was a very, very tough job. I don't think they were always let down. They were occasionally let down. Sometimes they were let down, yes, but they were bloody difficult to deal with.
Well, they were. When you say they were looked up to by the rest of the trade union movement, I guess that's where they're the aristocracy of the trade union movement, weren't they?
They were the aristocracy of the trade union movement, and many of their employers were genuine aristocrats.
I still could. It just seems such a waste of, I guess, national resources as well. All that money just going to, follies in Cardiff Castle and things like that.
Well, I don't agree. It's got to be spent. It's going to be spent on something. Would you rather it went into the national coffers and built the Millennium Dome or something?
Well, maybe not the Millennium Dome, but perhaps one could think of surely that's better than going to some rich bloke's pad.
Yes,
some
it
national
is.
endeavour.
A national endeavour of some kind. I don't know. A Millennium Dome always strikes me as a completely fatuous enterprise.
Yes.
That cost £1,000 million. For what?
Well, now it holds concerts and
It does hold concerts now, yes.
But I don't. Yeah, that certainly wasn't why it was built. But I know. I mean, I'm not going to be defending the Millennium Dome.
Go on.
We'd need Anderson for that on a three-way conversation, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
The numbers of miners who were killed during the 19th century was extraordinary. I mean, I could have got this wrong, but I think it was around about 100,000. Is that right in the 19th century, or was I think
could well be?
Yeah, a mind-boggling number of people killed, and
people died every year.
Yeah,
in one way or another.
And I was thinking that I was looking into the numbers of soldiers killed during the 19th century in all of the various wars throughout that period, and it's around about 100,000 as well. I mean, I'm sure people will pick me up on exact numbers, but it's roughly the same figure. But we remember those people who were killed, but we don't remember those miners at all. I mean, would you say that we're quite an ungrateful nation, or is that me, a Southerner, saying that? So therefore,
I wouldn't say we were ungrateful. I would say that it's easier not to. It's easy to imagine the call of the trumpet, the siren call to fight for your country. It's much easier to imagine that than it is to imagine working down a pit. And
working down the pit was. I mean, that the 100,000 is just deaths. I mean, there are. I mean, those are deaths in accidents. I think that the illnesses.
Countless who were maimed or suffered miner's lung or other forms of respiratory illness or brain disease. A lot of them went blind too.
I mean, because the hours. I mean, they were down there for sort of 12 hours or so, weren't they?
Yes.
I mean, it's difficult to get anyone to do a 12-hour day in a comfy office nowadays.
It is, yes.
But so, and then also, there was one quote that struck me from a union leader I think it was in 1944, who and obviously this is prior to nationalisation, when he said that there was no owners had never done anything for miners safety-wise. Now, obviously, that's coming from the opposing side. But was that right, or were there any?
I don't think it was. I don't think it was entirely true. I mean, the miners like to exaggerate how dangerous a game it was. Of course, they did, and I think there was an awful lot of bad blood. Such bad blood all round that it wasn't surprising when people made up things like they've never done anything for the miners. I don't think it was true. There were things that were done, but if you are the boss, you have to live with the stigma of being the boss.
I guess they almost dehumanized each other, the miners and the owners. They viewed each other.
They kind of deserved each other. They were, this was the aristocracy of the labor movement against genuine aristocrats, old-fashioned aristocrats, I suppose, landed aristocrats.
So I wanted to ask a little bit about that the big strike during 84 and 85 that you deal with. I think you deal with it really sensitively, actually, because I mean, I don't know. I my memory of it is severely lacking, but in and Arthur Scargill doesn't come off completely terribly in your book, although he's slightly villain of the piece in that period.
Yes, he is.
With his nice flat in the Barbican and a Jaguar. But he was right, wasn't he, that the Thatcher government was intent to destroy mining?
He was right. I mean, that's what got me. I thought he was wrong and exaggerating. In fact, he was right. Scargill was right, but it's too late now, of course.
Yeah. And did you ever come across him in your reporting days in the 80s?
Yes, I did.
And
yes, I did. He was a very difficult man to deal with. Very difficult. Because the line between truth and untruth with Arthur was a slightly murky one.
And he certainly took a dim view of the press, didn't he?
Oh, yes. Why not?
Well, I get, yeah, most of the papers were backing the government at the time, weren't they?
I don't know, were they? But I can't remember.
Well, I guess I say that, yeah. I mean, I wasn't reading the newspapers in 84, 85.
Yeah.
I get a sense that, the Sun, the Times would all be backing Maggie Thatcher.
I think that the miners were having fought a very, very uneven struggle, and that they were bound eventually to be defeated.
And at the Battle of Orgreave, which I haven't really read a proper description. It always seems to be written from one side or the other. But
yeah,
I'd always assumed it was two violent groups just clashing. But that's not really fair, is it?
I don't think it is. I mean, the police were deployed as a national police force, which is something quite new in this country. And they were equipped with riot shields and snatch squad shields and batons and so on. And there were scenes there that I thought I would never see in this country. Appalling scenes. So, yeah, I think that a plague on both your houses, yes. That's a luxurious position.
I guess the police were backed up to the hilt by the Thatcher government, and there was never really going to be any.
They were. I mean, there were unlimited overtime bills paid. Policemen earned vast amounts of money policing that strike.
And then, of course, that was the local force, the South Yorkshire Police, who, of course, have had a checkered history.
Yes. To say the least.
Yes. I guess it was a portent of what was to come. I mean, it's. Could one say that government backing so early on gave bosses in that police force a sense of sort of impregnability? You couldn't be criticised.
I don't know. I wouldn't. I mean, I think you're a fool if you draw cause and effect out of anything. You can say that one thing happened and then another thing happened, but cause and effect is a very, very difficult line to draw.
So, with the destruction of the mining way of life, it seems so weird to me that we have that kind of dismantling of that way of life. And yet, in 2019, a lot of these communities voted for the very party that kind of did it to them.
Yes, many of these communities were. That's why it's called the Red Wall, not the Blue Wall. Many of these communities could not imagine anything other than a Labour vote come election time, and some of them did turn Tory, as you say. That was a reflection on what a terrible hole the Labour Party had got into.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of turned its back on the whole movement, hadn't it? Well before 2019.
Well before it. I mean, there were a lot of miners who were very, very disgusted with the Labour Party for not supporting them properly during the strike, and a lot of these areas in which the current Conservative government has drawn support were places that felt that sense of betrayal most deeply.
I guess also another area of mining that in Nottinghamshire equally felt betrayed by the Conservative government in the 90s.
Yes, they did. They did. And those things still rankle. They still, you put two miners together, and the first thing that happens is they size each other up for which side of the strike they were on. And as you know, a lot of the miners became members of the UDM, Union of Democratic Miners, which was founded during the course of the NUM strike, National Union Miners strike. And even now, the bad blood still survives. They really don't care for each other.
The very name, I guess, was a picking up Scargill on his decision not to hold a ballot.
Yes.
Now, would he have won that ballot?
I don't know.
It was too close, was it?
Well, I don't know. There were vast numbers of miners who came out on strike, and there was numbers who didn't. But I don't know I don't know. We're speculating here.
Yeah.
Speculation is the enemy of the historian.
Absolutely. There are some. I was talking to a historian before Christmas who was all for it, had no problem with it. So it's always interesting to know who likes to go down the sort of counterfactual route and who doesn't.
Well, yeah, okay, but evidence is what we deal with, isn't it?
Indeed. So Jeremy, are you now you finish this book? Are you planning another book on something else soon?
I'm working on a book about the trial of Charles I.
Oh, really? Fantastic. The trial itself.
I think it's I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I'm in the middle of the research. If you could see my office here, you would see I'm surrounded by piles of books which I haven't yet read.
Oh well, I hope you enjoy that. If you could see where I am, obviously I'm not got such a lovely bookcase as yours behind you, but I'm surrounded by Jeremy Paxman books because I was reading.
Or old you.
Well, I was reading your A Life in Questions.
Yes.
I greatly enjoyed. It's very funny.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It is the genuinely many laugh out loud moments, particularly when your former editor of Newsnight got shipped off to look after the paperclip section in the BBC.
Oh yes, couldn't happen to a nicer man.
But so in reading your book, I was really interested because I used to live in Belize in Central America in the mid-80s. My father was in the army, and your section on El Salvador was very interesting.
Well, I've been to Belize, and I once made a journey from Belize into Guatemala and then down through Honduras and Nicaragua and El Salvador and Costa Rica and Panama, and then came home again. And I must say it was a very, very odd part of the world. The British really were not terribly, it wasn't our kind of place really at all. I remember meeting British squaddies out there in Belize who couldn't quite get their head around where it was exactly.
That's interesting you say that. I went back, having lived there I think I was, as a family, we were there from 84 to 87. But then I returned in 95 as an archaeologist for 6 months, which I loved. And I never saw the army when I was working as an archaeologist. And you're right. They were certainly never.
Were you excavating Mayan ruins?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. On the border of Belize and Guatemala.
Yeah.
But you're certainly right that I don't think we get it, because I arrived there not really getting it, and it's just, it's pretty lawless along those parts of the world, which it's difficult for a British mind to comprehend.
Very hard.
I heard a story about a British soldier who when he had his leave, he only had a few days, so he couldn't go back to Britain. So what he did was he got on a plane and flew to Miami, and then went to the Epcot Center at Disney World to find I don't know if you remember, it had all these little sort of countries, mini countries. So he went to the Epcot Center, England, and the Red Lion pub, and sat there for 3 days, and then returned to Belize.
Good God! Nothing would surprise me though about the British soldier.
But the El Salvador that you were in, and it's such a seductive part of the world. I mean, it's the people are very friendly. I guess in El Salvador that wasn't necessarily true for some of them, but some of them were
friendly, and some were not friendly. Some were distinctly unfriendly. It was
squads, wouldn't it?
Yes, horrible.
Yeah, it's. I think that's again, the sort of life is cheap aspect of that part of the world in that period.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that was very funny in your life in questions. There was a marvelous picture of you interviewing Napoleon Bonaparte.
Oh yes.
So now there's this documentary actually on Netflix all about that, the fight between two men to become the Napoleon on the day of the reenactment. I think you interviewed was it an interview or was it a chance meeting?
I think it was an interview. It was. I went there to do a feature for the Financial Times, I think it was, and the reenactment of the battle. So it was great fun. And the interview with Napoleon, who I think was a French small businessman. I can't quite remember, but that was just a part of it.
I watched this documentary where this very same man has created his own little Napoleonic empire in his house in whichever part of France he's in, complete with little signposts saying you are now entering, the empire. But he was convinced that Napoleon had won the battle. Was he? Was it a memorable interview or not up there with your favorites?
It's not up there with my favorites. I mean, it was a conversation, but I thought it was just extraordinary. You'd have to be French to believe that all that had happened was that Napoleon had reculé pour mieux sauter, gone back to jump better.
Well, that's why we love the French, isn't it?
We don't love them.
They wouldn't be French if they weren't like the French, though, would they? We need them to be like that.
I think I'm rather with Nelson, who said, "I require 3 things of you," and to any sailor who was joining up with him, he said, "You must obey my orders without hesitation. You must love your king, and you must hate the French most damnably."
I could never hate a nation which has so many different types of cheese myself, but
well, that is, who was it said that it was impossible to govern?
Yeah,
De Gaulle was it,
yeah,
who
De
said
Gaulle.
that you couldn't govern a country that produced that number of cheeses.
Yes.
That's pathetic.
One thing I did detect in your book throughout, and I've noticed this before as well, in that you did a very interesting debate between Adam Zamoyski and Andrew Roberts about Napoleon.
Yes. Napoleon is the big weakness of the French. They persist in thinking he's a great man. In fact, he was just a jumped up little tyrant.
Well, so, okay, I certainly know you came down on the side of Zamoyski in that debate.
Yes.
And one thing I didn't ask that I should have. Had you gone down a mine during your research?
Yes, I have several times.
And what was that like? Because that's difficult to comprehend, really.
It's terrifying. I mean, I think that many people were apprehensive the first time they went down and then got used to it. And that is true. But it's something about I'm 6'1". I'm not particularly tall by the standards of our times. But it's the banging of your head constantly against the ceiling when walking that gets you. And that's assuming you can walk. A lot of places you can only crawl. It's horrible. And it's easy to get frightened too. Fear is a product of the imagination, but it is easy to get frightened.
I went to caves in Ireland once where they turned off all the lights, and that fear really did grab me within not, you have to try and suppress it, but not long after the lights went out, within a few seconds.
Yes, I've been potholing with a friend, and he thinks it's fun. I find it absolutely terrifying.
Yeah,
it's the fear of being trapped, not being able to turn around in a space is awful.
And we're reading about the wounds on because it's so hot down there, they had to take their tops off, and the wounds on the vertebrae on their backs from scraping their backs along the walls. Just
yes, like the buttons on a coat down the back on each vertebra.
Well, I'm 6'3", and it sounds like absolute hell to me.
Awful.
Mm. Well, look,
don't go down a pit.
What's that?
Don't go down a pit.
No, I don't think there's much risk of that happening for me now.
Well, Jeremy, that's probably a good way to end it. So it's been great for Aspects of History. It's great for me. So thank you so much for coming on.
I hope your magazine is a huge success. I'll very happily endorse it, and I hope that you sell lots and lots of copies, and I wish you every success.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Okay, great. Well, nice to talk to you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for your time.
Look after yourself. Bye.
All the best. Bye.
Right, so what did you think? Do let me know. You can email Aspects of History at history@aspectsofhistory.com, or you can get hold of me on the Twitter. That's Twitter address for me is at Ollie OLLIEWCQ, Ollie WCQ. So you can just get hold of me that way if you like as well. Mr. Paxman is not on Twitter or any social media. I've read elsewhere that he thinks it's a nasty place, and I think for the most part he's probably right, but there are nice parts of Twitter as well, like anywhere. Anyway, so interesting chat with him, very interesting book, and the prevailing feeling I got out of it was just empathy for the miners, all the miners from who had worked down the pit. And one thing we didn't get into, which is dealt with very well in the book, are the succession of just huge tragedies. I say huge, hundreds of people killed in isolated incidents and throughout mining. But Aberfan is probably the most recent major disaster in the 60s, when a slag heap crushed a primary school in South Wales. And there have been a succession of huge accidents over the years, and it's just a horrific tale. And that's something that comes out in the book very well as well. So there are a few things that were mentioned in our chat, one of which was the Netflix documentary about the reenactment of the Battle of Waterloo in 2015. This was on the 200th anniversary, and that's the one where Paxman interviewed the Paxman isn't actually in the documentary, but he interviewed the man who is in the documentary, who genuinely believes he's Napoleon. It's definitely worth a watch. It's amusing. It's quite an ironic film. I definitely recommend it. And then there is also an article that Jeremy referred to. That's on the FT website. I think if you register, you get a few articles free, so worth doing. And his article is really good. And then finally, I think we mentioned there was a debate between Andrew Roberts and Adam Zamoyski about whether Napoleon was great or not. And that's on YouTube and chaired by Jeremy Paxman. So I'll put that on the website as well. And finally, there was the our YouTube channel where you can go and see some of our videos. So next up, we'll have Saul David, as I said at the start. And I've given you my contact details, so get hold of me if you've got any. If you've got any ideas of any authors you'd like me to interview, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear from you guys. Just tell me if there are any authors, any books that interest you, and I'll see what I can do. If you want to head to our website, you can go to our author platforms, and those are all authors who've signed up to us for us to help with them. And let me know if any of those authors are interesting to you, and I'm sure I can get them on the show as well. Right, that was it. So until next week, welcome to 2022, and I hope you all have a very successful year. Thank you, and good night.